My mother called me on a Thursday morning, and by the time she hung up, I knew my son had made the worst mistake of his life. I'm Luke Bennett. I fix things for a living. Not literally, though I've patched enough drywall in my time. I'm the guy people call when a business partnership sours, when a contract gets breached, when something breaks that a wrench can't touch. I fix bad decisions and mitigate worse consequences. I've been doing it so long it stopped feeling like a skill and started feeling like a curse. Standing in my kitchen in Cedar Falls, Iowa, my coffee going cold on the granite counter, I felt that familiar electric hum in my chest. It was the hum that meant something fundamental was already broken, and nobody had bothered to tell me yet. It was just past 9 a.m. My mother, Dorothy Bennett, 81 years old, still using a corded landline at her house on Burwood Lane in Davenport, called me out of nowhere. No hello. No comment about the unseasonable frost or my receding hairline. Just my name, dropped flat and careful, like she was testing the floorboards before putting her weight on them. Luke. Hey, Mom, I said, turning off the stove burner. What's wrong? Did Nathan's graduation party already happen? There it was. The trap I didn't even know I was stepping into. I set my mug down slowly. Nathan, my grandson, Christian and Olivia's boy, had just wrapped his first year at Drake University in Des Moines. Olivia had been talking for months about throwing him a lavish party at their place out in Ankeny. Big custom deck, manicured neighborhood. The kind of house they brought up in conversation far more than was strictly necessary. I had figured I'd get a call with the date. I figured Dorothy would too. She was the boy's great-grandmother. She'd taught him gin rummy. She once chased a feral raccoon off his bicycle with a broom and didn't spill a drop of her sweet tea. She had earned her invitation. Yeah, I said, my voice slowing down as the puzzle pieces shifted. I think it was this past Saturday. Why? Nobody called you? I called Christian, she said, her voice completely devoid of tremor, to ask how the preparations were going. He went very quiet. Then Olivia got on the line, laughed, and said, "Oh, Mrs. Bennett, the party was last Saturday." Just like that, a cold current moved through me. Not anger, not yet, something more like recognition. She laughed. I didn't know it yet, but that condescending, breathy little laugh was going to be the most expensive sound Olivia Davis Bailey ever made. "I'm going to call him," I said. "Wait," Dorothy commanded softly. Shirley Greer was at that party. You remember Shirley from First Methodist? She goes to Olivia's Pilates class now. The dryness in my mother's voice could strip the varnish off a hardwood floor. She didn't know I hadn't been invited either. Shirley called me Sunday to say what a lovely time she'd had. She also mentioned meeting a very professional gentleman in a suit, a lawyer, Daniel Pruitt. Shirley said he had a leather folder and was asking very specific questions about me, about my memory, about whether I ever got confused about my finances. The floor shifted under me. A lawyer? At a college graduation party? Shirley said they all went inside for about an hour. Dorothy continued, leaving the folder detail hanging in the air like a guillotine. Left the younger kids on the deck. When they came back out, Christian looked like he was going to be sick. Olivia looked like she'd just won the lottery. I didn't speak for a long moment. My mind raced through the implications, hitting upon the ugliest, most unspeakable conclusion. "Mom," I said, my voice low and dangerous. "Are they going after the trust?" Dorothy Bennett had lived on Burwood Lane for 52 years. My father had built an ironclad trust before he died. Land, municipal bonds, diversified savings. The kind of quiet, unglamorous wealth that accumulates when you never show off. Drive 10-year-old cars and never stop working. 11 prime acres outside Davenport, and accounts that would shock the people who assumed she was just a sweet, fragile old woman baking casseroles. Nobody talked about the money. It was just there, permanent, assumed, until someone stopped assuming and started scheming. "Luke," she said, "how long have you known Olivia?" "Long enough." "Then you already know the answer." She was right. I'd never been able to put my finger on what bothered me about my daughter-in-law. Olivia was polished, attentive, and always said the right things at the exact right volume. But beneath the veneer was a quietness that wasn't calm, a watchfulness that wasn't warmth. I had always told myself I was just being an overprotective father. I told myself Christian was happy, and that was enough. But Christian wasn't happy. He was drowning. They had bought that massive house in Ankeny right before interest rates skyrocketed. Olivia insisted on the luxury cars, the country club memberships, the private Pilates sessions. Christian's logistics business had taken a brutal hit the year prior. I knew they were stretched thin, but I hadn't realized they were desperate, and desperation makes a man justify the unforgivable. "I'm going to handle this, Mom. I'll call a lawyer." "I already did," she said. And there it was. Not fear, not anger. Something almost like amusement. The terrible, beautiful composure of a woman who had been underestimated her entire life and had learned to weaponize it. "Luke, honey," she said softly, "how do you think I knew to call you on a Thursday morning?" She hung up before I could answer. I stood in my kitchen and thought about my son, and the boy I had coached in Little League, the kid I had taught to change a tire and treat people with respect. Grief welled up in my throat. Where had I failed him that he would let his wife treat his grandmother like a target to be liquidated? I called Christian. He picked up fast, too fast, the way guilty people always do. "Dad? Why wasn't your grandmother at Nathan's party?" I didn't bother with a warm-up. Silence, the specific heavy silence of a man running terrifying algorithms in his head. "Dad, it was just Nathan's friends, college people. It wasn't really a family thing. She is 81 and lives 20 minutes from you. She taught that boy to read." "I know, but..." "Dad, look, we've got a lot going on." Then I heard it. In the background, muted but unmistakable. Olivia's voice. Low, urgent, pointed, like a handler whispering through an earpiece. "We'll come by," Christian said suddenly, his voice tight. "Next Thursday, we'll drive up to Cedar Falls. We'll explain everything in person." "Explain what, Christian?" "Thursday, Dad, please." He hung up. I spent the next week doing what I do best, not yelling, not spiraling, not tipping my hand. I drove the 40 minutes down to Davenport on Monday, sat at Dorothy's kitchen table on Burwood Lane, drank her terrible decaf coffee, and listened. Turns out my mother had been incredibly busy while I was standing in Cedar Falls feeling blindsided. The morning after Shirley Greer's gossipy phone call, my 81-year-old mother had gotten dressed in her Sunday navy suit, driven herself downtown, and walked into the office of Emily Johnson, a sharp-as-glass estate attorney on the 4th floor of the Kendall Building. Emily was an old family friend who had handled my father's original trust. Emily made a few discreet inquiries, Dorothy told me, stirring her decaf with a steady hand. "That lawyer at the party? Daniel Pruitt. He specializes in aggressive conservatorships. Olivia retained him 2 weeks ago. Emily figured out their strategy." "Which is?" I asked, feeling physically ill. "They wanted to use the graduation party as a staging ground. They were going to invite me. surround me with loud music, dozens of strangers, and chaos. Then Pruitt was going to pull me aside, ask me confusing financial questions, and document my cognitive decline in front of witnesses. When I didn't show up, because Olivia purposefully forgot to mail my invitation but told the Christian she had, they just used the time to draw up the initial filings. My blood ran cold. The mechanics of it were sickeningly precise. To force a conservatorship, you need to prove the elderly person is a danger to themselves or their assets. Olivia was trying to manufacture a medical emergency out of thin air, using her own son's milestone as a smokescreen. "It's illegal to file a fraudulent guardianship," I said, my voice shaking with rage. "Yes," Dorothy smiled. It was the smile she used to give me when I was a teenager and thought I was smarter than her. Emily explained exactly what we needed to do to make sure it goes nowhere. Thursday arrived like a storm that's been on the radar for days. You know it's coming. You've boarded up the windows, but there's still that stomach-dropping moment when you hear the first crack of thunder. Christian and Olivia pulled into my driveway at 2:14 p.m. in Olivia's pristine white Audi. I watched them from the window. Christian got out first, looking hollowed out, carrying the posture of a man who has been arguing with his wife for a week and losing. Olivia stepped out looking like a pharmaceutical rep, composed, bright-eyed, wearing a careful, sympathetic smile. I opened the door. "Come in." We sat at my kitchen table, the same table where Christian had done his middle school math homework. I poured coffee. Nobody spoke for a long minute. "Dad," Christian started, staring at his mug, "we want to talk to you about Grandma Dorothy." "Okay." "We're worried about her." Olivia jumped in, smooth and practiced. "She's 81, Luke. She's alone in that big house. She's managing significant assets without any oversight. And frankly, some of the decisions she's been making, well, we feel she's becoming vulnerable to exploitation." "What decisions?" I asked. Olivia blinked. She hadn't expected me to cross-examine her so quickly. She gave a significant sum to her church last year without consulting anyone, and she forgot to renew her home insurance on time. "It's her money, Olivia. She can give it to a cult of raccoons if she wants to, and her insurance was late by 2 days because of a postal delay. I know, because I'm on the account." "Dad, nobody is saying she can't do what she wants," Christian pleaded. "We just think there should be some structure to protect her. If she needs a care facility soon, we need to be able to liquidate the land to pay for it." I looked at my son, and the grief finally hardened into something sharp and unforgiving. "Is that why you had Daniel Pruitt at Nathan's graduation party?" The air in the room vanished. Christian went completely still. Olivia's trained smile didn't disappear, but it tightened at the corners, like a rubber band stretched to its absolute limit. "Who told you that?" Olivia asked, her voice dropping its warm customer service pitch. "It wasn't like that," Christian stammered. "Pruitt is just a guy I know from the club." "Daniel Pruitt," I interrupted, leaning forward, "an aggressive probate and conservatorship lawyer from West Des Moines. And you used my grandson's graduation party as cover to plot a legal ambush to strip my mother of her human rights and steal her home. That is an outrageous accusation," Olivia snapped. "Here is what you need to understand," I said, keeping my voice dead level. "My mother knows. She knew before I did. She was sitting in her attorney's office on Monday while you were still deciding what blouse to wear to this little intervention. Emily Johnson is Dorothy's attorney of record, and she has already contacted Pruitt's firm." Whatever color was left in Olivia's face drained away. Furthermore, I continued, as of Tuesday, Dorothy has updated her estate documents. I don't know the details. She didn't share them with me. She said, and I quote, "A woman's finances are her own damn business." But I do know that the competency challenge you were building is dead in the water. Emily has constructed a legal fortress around that trust that would take a team of corporate lawyers a decade to untangle. The kitchen was agonizingly silent. Christian looked like he was struggling to breathe. He put his head in his hands. He knew it was over. He knew his financial life raft was gone, and worse, he knew his father saw him for exactly what he had become. "Dad, I'm sorry," he whispered. "There's one more thing," I said, ignoring the apology. "Nathan, he doesn't know what that party really was, does he?" Christian shook his head slowly. "He's going to find out. Not from me, but the truth always comes out. And when it does, that is between you and the boy." I stood up and took their full coffee mugs to the sink. "I think we're done here." They left at 3:41 p.m. I watched the Audi back out of my driveway. Then I called Dorothy. "How'd it go?" she asked, picking up on the first ring. "About how you'd expect," I said, leaning against the counter, exhausted. Christian looked broken. Olivia looked like she swallowed a lemon. "Mom, what exactly did you change in those documents?" I heard that magnificent, infuriating sound. Her soft laugh. "I told you, Luke, a woman's finances are her own business. I'll see you Sunday for dinner. I'm making pot roast." Sunday pot roast. That is how Dorothy Bennett chose to detonate the final bomb. Over dinner rolls, carrots, and sweet tea at a table set for 5 in the house on Burwood Lane. Let me tell you something about my mother. She has never raised her voice in anger, not once in my memory. She doesn't scream, she doesn't cry, and she doesn't issue warnings. She just waits, patient and quiet and absolutely lethal until the moment is exactly right. And then she doesn't destroy you loudly, she destroys you completely. I pulled up to her house at 4 p.m. and noticed 2 things. Christian's car was in the driveway, and right behind it was Nathan's beat-up Honda Civic with the Drake University sticker on the back. She had invited Nathan without telling his parents. Oh, she was good. I walked in without knocking. Christian was sitting at the table looking like a man waiting for a lethal injection. Nathan was next to him, lanky and 20, scrolling on his phone with the beautiful, had oblivious energy of a kid who had no idea what was about to happen to his afternoon. Olivia sat rigid, spine straight, hands folded like she was chairing a hostile board meeting. Dorothy was at the stove. "Luke," she said over her shoulder, "hang your coat. Dinner's in 20. The dinner was the most elaborate performance of normalcy I have ever witnessed. Dorothy served the pot roast. She had baked rolls from scratch. She asked Nathan about his economics classes. She asked Christian about his logistics firm. She even complimented Olivia's blouse, a surgical move that made Olivia visibly panic, uncertain if she was being forgiven or set up for the slaughter. It was the latter. I ate in silence, which is its own kind of skill. Nathan ate enthusiastically, completely unaware that the table had been arranged like a chessboard, and checkmate was 3 moves away. Finally, Dorothy set down her fork. She folded her linen napkin and placed it beside her plate with a small, precise click. "Nathan," she said pleasantly, "I have something I'd like to give you." Nathan looked up, a roll halfway to his mouth. "Yeah?" Dorothy reached into the pocket of her good navy cardigan and produced a cream-colored sealed envelope. She slid it across the table. Nathan wiped his hands and opened it. I watched his face. I watched the casual ease fade, replaced by deep concentration, then confusion, then something much heavier. "Grandma D," he stammered. This is a bank statement with my name on it." "It is," Dorothy said gently. "Your grandfather worked very hard, and so did I. You are going to finish that degree and do something that matters. So yes, it is a very large account. Mom, Dad, did you know about this?" Nathan looked at his parents. "No," Olivia said, her voice fracturing, thin as a hairline crack in fine china. "There is a condition," Dorothy continued, her eyes locked on Nathan. "It is an irrevocable, independent trust. It goes directly into an account in your name only, not a joint account, not a family account. Nobody can touch it but you, and you cannot touch the principal until you are 25. Emily Johnson's office set it up on Tuesday. The transfer has already cleared." The table was paralyzed. I felt something in my chest that I can only describe as watching justice move in slow motion. "I also want you all to know," Dorothy said, sweeping her gaze to Christian and Olivia, her voice perfectly calm, "that I have updated my estate. The Burwood Lane property, the savings, all of it has been placed into a blind trust managed by a third-party fiduciary. Upon my passing, the assets bypass probate entirely. It is locked." "Grandma," Christian choked out. "I am not finished, sweetheart," she said, raising one finger. "I also want to mention, and I say this with love because I do love this family, that I was evaluated by Dr. Patricia Howe at Davenport Medical Center on Wednesday. A full cognitive assessment. Memory, reasoning, executive function." She tilted her head. "I passed with, as Dr. Howe put it, remarkable clarity for any age. Emily has the report. It has been attached to my legal filings." The crack in Olivia's composure split wide open. "Dorothy, we were just trying to help. We are drowning in debt, and you are sitting in a massive house you don't need." "Olivia," Dorothy's voice didn't harden. It just settled, like a stone dropping to the bottom of a frozen lake. "I know about Daniel Pruitt. I know about the meeting at Nathan's party." Nathan turned to look at his mother, his brow furrowed. "What meeting?" Nobody answered him. "What meeting, Mom?" Nathan repeated, his voice losing its boyishness. "Who is Daniel Pruitt?" Dorothy looked at her great-grandson with an expression of pure, uncomplicated love. "Ask your parents, baby," she said softly. "I think it's time." What followed was not a conversation I will describe in full, because the destruction of a son's respect for his parents is a terrible thing to witness. Nathan wasn't stupid. He had noticed the strange man in the suit at his party. He had noticed his mother's frantic energy. When Christian, weeping quietly, finally confessed to the debt and the plan to force a conservatorship, Nathan didn't yell. He didn't throw a plate. He just stared at them with a look of absolute disgust. "You used my graduation," Nathan said, his voice flat. "You used my party to try and lock up my great-grandmother so you could pay off your mortgage." Olivia tried to reach for him. "Nathan, we were protecting your inheritance." Nathan stood up, his chair scraping violently against the linoleum. "Don't touch me." By 6:30 p.m., Christian and Olivia were gone. They drove back to Ankeny in complete silence, returning to a house they could no longer afford, with a marriage that was effectively over. Nathan stayed. He sat at the kitchen table with Dorothy while I washed the dishes. He apologized for his parents. Dorothy patted his hand and told him not to carry weights that didn't belong to him. I walked out to my truck at 7:15 p.m. The cold Davenport evening turned my breath to small clouds. Nathan followed me out, his hands shoved deep into his Drake University hoodie. "Grandpa Luke," he said quietly, "is that account real?" "It's real," I said. "Emily Johnson locked it up tight. Your parents can't touch a dime. Don't waste it." He nodded, kicking at a pebble on the driveway. "Are they going to lose the house?" "Probably," I said honestly. "Your dad made a bad decision with a person who was very convincing. It's going to be a hard few years for him." Nathan looked back at the house. Through the kitchen window we could see Dorothy's silhouette, humming as she wiped down her pristine counters. "She's something else, isn't she?" "She always has been," I said. "Predators just look at gray hair and see a victim. They forget that you don't survive 81 years on this earth without learning how to bite back." A lot happens in the aftermath of a failed betrayal. You rarely see it in the movies, but real life doesn't end at the climax. 6 months later, the Ankeny house went on the market. Without the ability to raid Dorothy's trust to cover their ballooning debts, the financial pressure crushed whatever fragile bond Christian and Olivia had left. The divorce was ugly, drawn out, and public. Olivia tried to fight for alimony, but Christian's logistics business had officially folded. You can't squeeze blood from a stone, and you certainly can't squeeze it from a man you've bankrupted spiritually and financially. Nathan didn't go back to Ankeny for the summer. He rented a cheap apartment in Des Moines with 2 buddies, took a part-time job to pay for his groceries, and left his trust fund entirely untouched, just as Dorothy asked. He drives up to Davenport every other Sunday now. He sits at the table, eats pot roast, and plays gin rummy with the woman who secured his future. Christian is currently renting a 1-bedroom apartment in Cedar Falls, about 3 miles from me. We are working on our relationship. It's slow, painful work. I have to unlearn the guilt of feeling like I failed to raise a good man, and he has to do the grueling work of actually becoming one. I don't know if he'll ever fully forgive himself, but he comes over on Tuesdays to help me patch drywall, and that's a start. As for Dorothy, she's doing just fine. I drove home that Sunday night, the highway empty and dark, feeling the specific, quiet satisfaction of watching someone underestimate the wrong person and live with the consequences. My phone buzzed on the passenger seat as I hit a red light on Highway 30. A text from Dorothy. Dinner was nice. The rolls came out well. I stared at the screen, smiling in the glow of the dashboard lights. I typed back, "You destroyed them with pot roast and sweet tea." Dad would have loved it. 3 little dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. "He always did love a good Sunday," she replied. I set the phone down and drove the rest of the way home. My father had built something real and left it to a woman he trusted completely. Olivia Davis Bailey had looked at my mother and seen fragility. She had seen an expiration date. She hadn't seen the iron spine beneath the navy cardigan, and that right there is the only mistake that ever really matters.